Hey y'all, if you're coming to Las Vegas market, I just wanted to let you know to come by and see me. Sunday, July 28th, I will be co-hosting the Andes Awards. These are the design awards. I will be co-hosting that with John Cialone, who is the chair of the ASID National Board. We will be presenting 12 awards that day, and it's always fun to see who applies, who wins. So please join us Sunday, July 28th at 3:30 in Building B on the 16th floor. I know that's a lot of information, but you can go to my Instagram and find out more. Now, the other place you can find me in Las Vegas is on Monday, July 29th at 3:30 p.m. I will be with my friend Rick Campos and Roner Graff. We will be at the Essentials for Living showroom, which is in Building B, Suite 600, and we are talking about lessons learned and profits earned. This is such a good conversation. It's a panel discussion, and we are going to talk about lessons that we have learned in our careers and how we have earned profits from that. That is Monday, July 29th at 3:30, Building B, Suite 600, Essentials for Living. And I hear there's a happy hour cocktail party after that, so you know you want to come for that. There you have it. So now let's jump into today's episode.
I think when a client hires a designer, it's more than just the ability to design or the ability to facilitate a construction project. It really is, do they like your vibe? Like, do they like the way that you approach not just design, but the world? Like, what are your opinions on certain things? It really is such a human psychology aspect to this business. It's a very personal and intimate relationship that you have. And so putting myself forward as my most authentic self and expressing myself through fashion and design and all the things, I really feel like that's just going to filter and attract the people that we're meant to work with. So there is a strategy there.
Hey, y'all, you're listening to the Designer Within podcast, episode number 51. I'm John McClain, and welcome to the Designer Within podcast, the business minded podcast created for creative entrepreneurs by a creative entrepreneur. That's me. I know firsthand the challenges, but also the victories that can come with our careers. And I'm here to sip and spill the tea with you. It's time to dive deep within yourself and redesign your own business and your life from the inside out. Together, we will uncover secrets and share valuable insights. So prepare for a transformative experience, my friends, because it's time to unleash the designer within. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Designer Within podcast. I'm John McClain. I think we have a lot of new listeners listening to the pod, and I want to welcome you all. And of course, I want to say hello to all of you who have been here for a while. It is such a great honor to be here again in your earbuds as you are walking, as you're at the gym, as you're doing the laundry. I see you, and I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope you're enjoying it. We have a really great podcast today. It's an interview episode with Brittany Farinas, and this is a really great episode in a lot of ways. I First of all, was attracted to the application that was sent in for Brittany because it's just very detailed, and I do have an application process when someone wants to be on the podcast, and hers was very detailed. I liked the questions that she had. I asked people to title the podcast episode, which I did steal from my friend Luann and her podcast, A Well-Designed Business. She does that, and I loved it, so I stole that as part of my application process for my own podcast. So I asked people to title the podcast. I loved all of that, but I also loved when I did click on her website, I was instantly smitten by the website. It is very professionally done. It did create an image of someone who is successful, who wants more success, and who worked hard to get there. And Brittany doesn't hold back. She's going to share a lot with us in today's episode from how her first hire was her PR firm, right? So how many of us can say that? I cannot. I cannot say that my first hire was my PR firm, but Brittany's was, and it has definitely worked out well for her. She also talks about how she invested in her company in other ways in the beginning, from photography to styling to bringing on team members strategically, and how she really has worked her way up. I have actually divided this interview up into two episodes for you. The first half of our interview, which is going to be the one you're listening to now, is going to be focusing on how Brittany started her business and also the professional image and the image that she portrays to the world about herself and her projects, etc. and how that has developed her business. I love her approach to this, and I really wanted to divide this interview up. Now, next week, you're going to hear part two of our interview, which is going to be more in the business side of things. We really get into some good conversations about custom furniture, how she approaches custom furniture, how she handles her purchasing, how she handles client interviews. All of these things we're going to talk about next week. So please be sure to come back and listen to part two of Brittany's interview next week. I know you're going to enjoy it just as much as this one. Brittany works in the Miami market and has projects, of course, all over the country. And I think you're just going to find this episode very informative, very detailed, and we go into some nitty gritties of how she is successful and what she has planned on the horizon. So, here's a bit about Brittany. Brittany is the CEO and creative director of House of One. House of One is a multifaceted Miami-based interior design firm specializing in curated luxury residential and commercial projects. By prioritizing creativity and an exceptional client experience, CEO and creative director Brittany Farinas is known for guaranteeing that every client experiences the art of living with style. And I think this interview will tell you that in a nutshell. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Brittany Farinas with House of One. Brittany, welcome to the Designer Within podcast.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. I'm very excited about our conversation today. There's lots of facets to what we're going to talk about, which is always great. I love when someone is really willing to open up about different types of their business, how they got started, where they're going next, all the things. It's going to be such a great interview. I know it is. So before we do all of that, tell everyone about yourself, your firm, how you got into interior design so that they understand a bit more about you.
Absolutely. So I am Brittany Farinas. I am the CEO and founder of House of One Interior Design, and it is a Miami-based interior design firm. We do projects in Miami, South Miami, Miami Beach as our primary market, and then we also have work across the country. I really got into this at such an early age. In hindsight, looking back and seeing the progression of when I was about 5, 6 years old, hanging out with my mom while she worked at a furniture showroom. Creativity was always a part of my DNA. I felt like just artistry and expression through different mediums has always just been just a part of me. So I was involved in dance and music and, just graphic design, photography, anything and everything that I could use to collage an idea and just look at beautiful imagery. I was just always there to do it. So, fast forward high school, I still hadn't grasped the idea of being able to leverage creativity to use as a career. And so after I graduated high school, I was doing some research and found this design school that I went to straight out of high school. And while I was in design school, I was also working 3 different serving jobs. So I would
Oh,
basically, work in this restaurant. So it was a nightlife restaurant. I would clock in at like 5 p.m. and leave at 5 a.m. So I was working these crazy hours. And then during the day, I also worked at a real estate office. So it was kind of like in the midst of juggling all these things and going to design school, I got my first opportunity. And that was a huge learning experience for me because it was a 5,000 square foot house, complete gut renovation. And then from there, it just sort of, slowly started to increase. So the first year I had one job, then the second year I had 2 or 3. And by the 3rd year, I really started to pick up. But that's when COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, my whole world just stopped. I was like starting to go at this really rapid pace. But I had a client at the time who, we're working on his home, and he introduced me to his business partner who we then did his 10,000 square foot house. In 4 months, we furnished the entire property and did a ton of custom millwork and upholstery. And then I was like, okay, I think I should probably hire someone now because I'm starting to need the help. And I hired my first employee back then and quickly grew the firm. And, now I'm in a place where, we're working on 10 projects at once. They're either remodels, new construction, or furnishing jobs. And, since day one, we've been focusing on custom furniture design. And I know I've probably skipped a ton of parts, but that's sort of where I'm at today. So yeah.
Great, it's great. I wanna pick one thing apart that you said in there. Actually, I wanna pick several things apart because there was lots of good nuggets in there. First of all, I feel, and probably you saw that as well, even though you were doing all of these other things that were not design related, you couldn't squash that design gene inside of you, could you? You couldn't let it go. The creativity had to find its way out somewhere, I'm sure, right? So how did it find its way out before you got that first project? What were you doing to say, "Okay, I love this. Like, I want to do this more." Was it for friends and family like we all do, or what was your kind of niche there?
So I think, I always saw creativity as, as a passion of mine and something that I felt was just self-fulfilling, and nothing that I thought of like, okay, maybe I can use this to help other people or to serve other people. And so I've always been decorating my room. Like I said, my mom worked at a furniture showroom that's actually still around. And so, I after high school, I was like, okay, well, I always thought of interior designers as, pillow fluffers, and I know that's, like,
Mhm.
so not the term to
I
use in
bet
this
you don't
industry.
anymore, do you? I bet that's changed.
Oh, okay. But, but as I started to do research, I was like, "Wait, this is a lot more like diving into architecture." And so I just immediately I was so intrigued by the profession, and I really wanted to learn the trade. And so immediately, the thought of going to school was so exciting for me. I've always just loved, the idea of learning new things and, sort of like, having new challenges. And yeah, so I learned CAD, I learned SketchUp, I learned all the things, which I think
Oh,
really helped me, like looking back now when I had my first few hires, it was a lot easier for me to delegate because I knew the programs, I knew the softwares. I always hired people who were more skilled than I was in on the technical side. And I think still to this day, like I have a team of just amazing designers that help sort of articulate those ideas. But yeah, I think the transition of, "Okay, am I gonna do this?" to like, "Okay, I'm doing this," was just research. I was like, "Okay, this is what this actually is. Let me go and try to do this."
but wait, your first job was this 5,000 square foot home. That's not jumping in, like, that's not putting one toe into the water. That's literally jumping in, I think, head first, which bravo to you. Like, how was that? What was that experience like?
I mean, look, it was bound to happen because I was just killing myself as far as, like, working multiple jobs and, like, I had no social life whatsoever. Like, when I tell you I worked 3 jobs, those were just, like, my restaurant jobs, and I also had a real estate job. And so, I was meeting a lot of people, networking in Miami, constantly telling people, like, I'm in design school. And then this first job, I mean, it came through my real estate, avenue. And then it was, a client who basically wanted someone who understood the technical side to help her execute, the design. So it sort of became this, like, very much collaborative effort. But I mean, we're talking about, like you said, a 5,000 square foot house. We're learning pretty much, everything front to back from, the demo process to the millwork, the flooring, the plumbing, electrical, I mean, just the whole thing. So it was like, so much at once. And I think, because of that experience, I was able to sort of jump these levels so much faster. And I'll tell you this, like what I was learning in school, being able to apply it, like at the same time was just invaluable. So I think that that first opportunity, I think just being prepared at the right moment to take on something that, would then give me back all this education. I think that whole, moment for me in my path is what kind of propels me forward.
I love all of that. I think that is so great that you not only took that risk with yourself and with your business and with your initial reputation, but you were learning as you went along, which we all are in the beginning as
Yeah.
designers. We're all learning as we go. And sometimes it's on our client's dime, and that's okay. We're getting better as we go and we give them a better product, but
Hopefully
probably
not.
probably in the beginning, you're like me, and when I was a young designer, I was charging very little for what I should be charging for my fee. So I feel like it's a give and take, that kind of a
Yeah.
situation.
Today, it's like I still struggle with that. It's like I'm actually charging people to do what I'm doing. It's like, okay, there's this
Right.
like balance of, okay, Brittany, you're a businesswoman, but look, I feel so fortunate, I'm sure you do as well. It's like we get to do what we feel is second nature to us. And again, like going back to looking at this as more of just a career, but we're able to serve people and really help them live a better life. And your home is your most important asset, and we're right there. So it's really great.
So when you're doing this and when you're coming to terms with all of that, I do feel the same way. I think most people come into it because we have this passion and we love it. We love everything about it. We read every magazine and watch every television show and talk to everybody who knows anything about the design world, right? That's how it is. You want to soak it all in. When did the switch kind of turn, or maybe it was always on for you to say, oh, this is a business. I do need to make profit from this. I can enjoy this and I can love what I'm doing, but by the way, I have to turn a dime here. So when did that click with you? Was it early on? Did you go into it knowing that? How did that process work for you? Because some people come in later and realize that part.
Yeah, so I feel like I've always had like a very entrepreneurial spirit from a very young age. I have really supportive parents, but I knew coming out of high school that I needed to support myself. I needed to take care of my bills. And like, when I started this business, I think since day one, I always had that sort of like hustler mentality of, I need to get new clients. So my first goal when I started my business was, how am I going to build a beautiful portfolio that I can then, showcase to other clients and then get, these bigger, better dream jobs. So from very early on, I was doing my research on, okay, how much is professional photography going to cost? And how much is it going to cost for me to style the home? Like, what if the clients don't want the accessories? Like all these little minutia things that add up. I think going into this, maybe a lot of it in my mind was like expected, like, oh yeah, the clients will buy the accessories or they will do this. And it's like, well, if they don't, then I'm basically there with a project that's not styled, but I need to take photos of it. So I guess to answer your question is like, I definitely knew that I needed to treat this as a very serious business, but of course, it's a lot easier said than done. So yeah, the first 2 years of work, I wasn't charging what I should have been, and I think that's fine. I think that's normal. That's kind of like how we all, go into it.
No judgment there whatsoever. Everyone is usually figuring out down the road, scratching their head, saying, "Oh, wait, I charged this for that." I was just telling someone on the interview last week in the beginning, my family built houses, so I just know how to do all the things. And so I thought that every designer should do that too. And so I'm going into the project painting
Yeah.
wallpaper and laying tile and all the things. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing? This is not the best use of my time. But to your point, you learn as you grow and you change things and pivot. I so love that you realized that you needed beautiful photography, that you needed to invest in styling, that you needed to make sure that what you were putting out there was what you wanted it to be and was a representation of your company. I love that. I love that, love that, love that. What ways did you invest in your business in the beginning? Because I know that's a really big part of your growth and how you've gotten to where you are and where you want to go. First of all, two-part question. How did you know what you needed to invest in? And then how did you make that decision to do so?
Wow. Okay. So it was very scary. I remember the exact moment when I was about to hire my PR firm that I work with, Natalie Norcross and her amazing team.
They're great,
And
yes.
I remember, looking back, I was like, now I'm like, okay, the investment is so worth it. At the time, I'm like freaking out. Like, what if I don't get this money back? Like, what if this just all, fails? Like, I didn't understand the concept of press. I didn't understand the concept of marketing, but I knew that I needed an outlet. I needed to take my imagery that I had from the first 2 years and I had to give it to someone and just trust them and hope that, that things were gonna work out the way in my mind how they were. I mean, look, a lot of running this business, I don't come from a business background. I don't have, my parents, they didn't go to college, and I hope they don't hate me for saying that. But a lot of what I built has been purely on research, trial and error, and just whatever feels right. And I really follow my gut. And I just, at the time, I said, okay, I'm gonna make this leap. They were my first hire before I had a design assistant, before I had anyone in the office. Um, and
Wait, wait, wait,
so
wait, wait. PR was your first hire. Okay, a girl after my own heart. I love it. I love it. I love it. Tell me,
uh,
okay, okay. Stop right there for a minute. That is something that I think that some people, even in 10 years, 15 years in business, are still afraid of making that leap. I think it's such a worthwhile investment. But what were you hoping to get out of making this first hire in your PR team? What were you hoping to get out? Was it more client? Was it more? I mean, what was it? All the above? What were you hoping to get from that when you decided, like, yes? Because I know, I mean, and I love all my PR friends, including the ones at your firm, but I know it's an investment, and it's an investment that you, not only monetarily, but time-wise as well, you have to give them what they need to make you
absolutely.
successful, the best pictures and the photos and also all the things that go behind that. So what were you expecting out of that relationship so early on in your career?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything, but the main thing definitely was credibility. I needed people to know that although I was a very small operation, I I take my job very serious. I invest in, doing research and sourcing and curating and, bringing on and vetting the best vendors. And I'm a professional in this industry. And although, at the time, and I think, still now I'm very young, I got this, like, and I am a serious businesswoman, and, I think coming into this, a lot of people knew me from, working in the restaurant that I was working at and multiple jobs, and, I was this, like, young girl that was kind of doing it all, and I really wanted to, like, step out and say, "Okay, like, I'm here, I'm owning my space, like, this is my niche, this is what I'm passionate about," and, I was proud of the work that I was doing on my own, and I really wanted to for people to see that. So I think, and actually I love what you said about, that you have to invest so much time. I think across the board, what I've realized with building my company is that even if I hire some of the best people to come and step in, whether it's, a CFO, a business coach, a PR firm, marketing manager, it's really just bringing in these professionals, but then it's also adding time to, for me to invest back in with them. So if you are looking to hire a PR firm, I think it's great, it's amazing, but you're only gonna be as successful as the amount of time that you invest back. I mean, I'm writing, responses to articles weekly, sometimes on a daily basis, and maybe, I may only get, like, a small feature on an online article, but it's that small feature that maybe one person sees, and I really believe that, like, every drop in the bucket matters. And so, yeah, I think hiring the PR firm, yeah, it was a pretty, risky move in the beginning, but I think it's definitely paid off. And people will reference, oh yeah, that project that was featured on the cover of Kitchen and Bath. Oh yeah, I saw it on your Instagram. So it's like now what I'm posting on Instagram, which is the content from the press, coverage, it's just like all, you know, fully encompassing of like this credible company that I hope to run, right? So
Yes, all of that, and I think too, it is part of the brand that you're building, obviously, and I love that early on you understood that you needed to find your avenue and a way to let the world know about your brand and who you are, and I could talk about branding all day long. I think it's such a integral part of the success of any business, especially interior designers, where we do wear our hearts on our sleeves and we're designing something for someone's home and we're in their intimate spaces and we are putting such passion into it. So if you don't have that passion behind your brand, then your brand is going nowhere. And I will tell you, I want to go ahead and talk about this now because this is something that struck me when I looked at your website and started researching you for this interview. Your website is gorgeous. It is beautiful, and I
thank you.
don't say that very often because I'm very picky on where I give my compliments when it comes to how people put themselves out into the world. But your website is beautiful. The branding is great. The photography, I can tell that you've invested in high quality photography. I go to the website and I'm like, yes, okay, this company, if I knew nothing about them, would be a worthwhile investment for me just from the fact that you're putting this image out into the world of professional, good quality, beautiful work, all the above. Was that also part of your sort of branding pyramid, I guess you would say, the pillars of your branding? How much of that is your website? How much of that is just social media? And then tell me about how you invested in those things because I think that investing in, again, your brand and your image, and specifically your website is so, so critical to any designer. And I see a lot of designers who just frankly fail in that department, and they'll put out something from their iPhone or whatever, which I know we all have to grow, but I just love that yours is so professionally done and so well thought out. So tell me more about the thinking behind your website and your professional image that you have out into the world.
Yeah, for sure. So with the photography, like I mentioned earlier, very early on, I started investing not only in the interior photography, but also just like personal branding. So, I would do a lot of video. I think sometimes when I go on my Instagram, I look at the old reels from like 2 years ago. I'm like, man, I'm like, I really got to get back to that, groove I had going on. I really think that, this goes all the way back to the imagery, right? It's like, the collaging, the, creativity and all the things, like, people need to see that you really are looking at all the details. Videography is such a great way for me to walk through the space, educate the clients, not only about my brand and my business and what I offer, but also like my approach to design, and like how my mind works and how I see design, how I register design. And I think that, when you go to the website, I really just wanted it to feel very editorial, very clean. I didn't mention this, but I am also very into fashion. And so I have a very like distinctive eye when it comes to like the things that I like. And like, I want things to be super clean and like you're only focusing on the one thing at the one time. And that's how I kind of work my interiors too, is like, first it's like a hierarchy for me. Like, what is the moment, right? So it's like, and then I always say everything else in the room is a supporting character. So same thing with the site is like the supporting character is the actual website, but the main character is the photography. And when I first spent, I think it was like think 8 grand on a project photo shoot. I was like, "Oh my god." Okay, I was like, "This is a lot of money." I'm like, "I don't really know if this is like I have another bid for like 1,500, like what's actually worth it?" And I went for that bigger ticket photographer, and when I got the photos back, I was like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "I this is not in a magazine yet, but this is magazine ready." And so that's sort of, the approach is like, creating this sort of editorial feel throughout the Instagram page, the website. And I'm really focusing now on a lot of just lifestyle. I think designers can make a room beautiful in so many different ways. I think when a client hires a designer, it's more than just the ability to design or the ability to facilitate a construction project. I think it really is like, do they like your vibe? Like, do they like the way that you approach just design, but the world? Like, what are your opinions on certain things? Like, it really is such a human psychology aspect to this business. It's a very personal and intimate, relationship that you have. And so putting myself forward as my most authentic self and expressing myself through fashion and design and all the things, I really feel like that's just gonna filter, and attract the people that we're meant to work with. So there is a strategy there to the way that I, put myself forward and, my personal Instagram and the business Instagram, they're alike in many ways, but I do show more of like my actual life outside of, House of One and what's going on. And I think it's important too, I talk to a lot of my clients, sometimes we'll be on site and, well, how was that trip to Bahamas? How is it? And it's like there's a little bit of more, that like personal relationship when it comes to the Instagram. But the company page is very much, an edited and curated version of like, hey, look, these are the shots and this is like, the newest and latest stuff that we're working on.
It shows. The editorial part shows, the fashion sense shows in it as well, and I feel that it feels very edited to me because as you scroll to the bottom, for instance, of some of the projects that you have, it says "show more," and I'm like, "Yes, show me more. I want to see more." And I think that's what you want from every client to go to your page because we are a visual medium. It's a place where people go to see something beautiful. No matter how well you run your business, no matter how well you have things going behind the scenes, yes, that is a very, very big part of success of a business owner, especially a designer, because not many of us have those skill sets to say, oh, yes, also, by the way, I can make a room beautiful and your house beautiful, but I can keep your project running smoothly as well. But first of all, they have to be captivated by what they see. And I think that you just do that. A plus to you on that. It's just very,
Oh,
very, very
thank
well done.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
love
so
it.
much.
I love too what you said, how you sort of weave in bits and pieces of your personal life. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with as well. They either go too far in and show way too much of everything, or they don't show enough because they're afraid of, somebody thinking something about them that may not be true about their business, about their life, or whatever. What is that line for you? Where do you say, okay, this is a great thing to share that will find my ideal client, that will let them know how to relate to me, that will give them a little bit about myself without going too far into that. Have you? I know you have. I can tell you thought about it. So tell me your thinking behind that and how you are putting out into the world how you want to be perceived.
There's a little bit of like an ebb and flow with this, with, managing an Instagram account. It's like, it takes so much time. And like, sometimes I get to a point where I'm like, okay, like I'll plan all my posts, just so that things don't look out of whack or like, you have like too many colors bunched up into one.
Is that your main medium, Brittany, on Instagram, or do you do other things as well? Just curious before we get into this conversation.
Yeah, the main is Instagram. We don't really post on
Yeah.
Facebook, and haven't really posted as much on LinkedIn, which, I'd love to. I think I'm just a little busy now, and Instagram has always been like I guess the top platform for us. So yeah, I think what I do is I really try to make both pages just feel present. I want people to know that this isn't just like this, massive pre-planned 1 month thing where it's like, okay, now they're gonna start posting or, and like people literally my clients will see me that day and like maybe that day a post goes up and it's like this happened the other day. I was just like I found this beautiful like vignette to take the house is under construction and I was wearing a great outfit. So I was like, you know what? I'll take the photo. And I think like when people, when they feel like, okay, like, this is happening live, there's just that little bit more of like interest where you're like, okay, well, like what is she doing today? What are they doing this week? So that's been really great. And again, this is something that I over the last couple weeks have realized, okay, this is kind of like the vibe I want to go for. And that changes. It's constantly evolving. Like there's maybe sometimes where I don't post for a week, 2 weeks. Right now, we don't have anyone that's managing the company page. It's all me, and it's fun. Some of the girls on my team, they'll also post and will repost when I go to visit a vendor, things like that. But when it comes to how much to share on personal versus like, work life, my work life and personal life, they really are merged together. My clients know when I'm traveling, I'm either A, if it's for pleasure, I'm there, but then I'm also like, if I can go sourcing, I'll go sourcing. And so like, I don't have this worry like I used to about like, oh no, I can't post that I'm like, in the middle of nowhere. Cause then my clients will think I'm not working. Like these are things that like happen when you're first like, going through like the growing pains of running a business. But then you get to a point where you're just like, okay, like my clients hired me like because they love me and they want to work with me. Like they don't want me to like not be happy. They want me to travel and enjoy life as long as their project is getting taken care of and I'm doing what I say I'm going to do. I think just being as authentic as you can, so meaning you can't really like focus so much on like, is it this? Is it that? Whatever feels right. Just that's what you go for.
That's great advice. And I love that you were saying that, oh, in this moment, I'm going to stop and take this photo. But you weren't really planning on probably taking a photo necessarily that day or whenever. You were just like, no, this worked in the moment. So let's do it. And I think that is something, again, that I forget who said it, but it's like, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. So if you're always ready,
I
no,
was
no.
thinking about this today because like sometimes in the morning when I was just talking to a girlfriend about this. When you leave your house and you're wearing this like amazing outfit, like your day is just that much better. When you're wearing an outfit that's like, it's like, okay, the day can be good, but it's not as good as the days where you're like, you're killing it. And so, yeah, like I realize like I'm doing all these cool, amazing things. A lot of the time, like people, they don't know that I'm doing any of these things. So like, why don't I just snap a couple pictures so that, by the way, when I am explaining to a client my fees and how much I charge, they're remembering and they're understanding, okay, well, she's doing all these things for me behind the scenes. Like she's making sure I'm getting the best of the best. Like, there's I think it all comes back to like, the value that you bring to the table, and part of that is like people want their designer to show up at their best always.
Always have to have it on. And I remember when I was just starting out, I went to like a fabric store or something, and I was like, okay, I didn't know. I was like, I'm gonna wear my suit jacket. I'm gonna look very nice. And I go in there, and the rep is like, he's like, son, if you dress like that every time you go out into the world, you're going to be a success. Even if someone I didn't know. And to your point, it is that person looking to you saying, oh, they care enough about what they're doing, about their business, about their life to put their best foot forward. And I think that you
Absolutely.
are a great demonstration of that, of how you can do that without being fake or false or inauthentic. You don't have to be something that you're not. You can still be who you are, and you should be who you are. But I love that. You should always put your best foot forward and be the best version of yourself. Alrighty, that is the first part of my interview with Brittany. I hope you enjoyed it. It was interesting, and I know her perspectives are fresh and fun. Please come back next week and hear part 2, where we are going to dig deeper into her business and talk about how she actually handles her onboarding process with her clients, the process that she uses, her purchasing process, and as I said, some really great information. I think I call it Custom Furniture 101 in our interview next week. So please be sure and come back next week for part 2 of my episode with Brittany Farinas. Thanks for being here, and remember to make changes on the outside. Sometimes we have to look within. I'll see you next time, my friend. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the Designer Within podcast. It means the world to me. If you're ready to dive deeper into the topics that we've discussed here, be sure to check out my online coaching and courses program, DesignSuccessAcademy.com. Here I will teach you everything you need to know to run your interior design business, from starting the project all the way to the end, including marketing and pricing your services for profit. And for more information on this podcast, including how to be a guest or my design services in general, go to johnmcclain.co. That's johnmcclain.co. See you soon, friend.